It's another week, another opportunity to take control of my life. As long as my anxiety doesn't get in the way. That bitch is so strong. What's up, DollFAM, and welcome back to an all-new episode of Monday Coffee with the Doll. I am your hostess with the absolute mostest in oversharing and overbearing cringeness at times. You know, here's the thing. I know I'm weird. If y'all haven't figured it out yet, there's probably no hope for you. Alright, everybody, so welcome back to an all-new episode for real. I appreciate you guys coming back every week to spend some time with me. This week, we're going to be talking about a few different things. I'm going to be taking on another DollFAM topic question to share with you all that I think is kind of interesting and is something that I've been talking about with a lot of people this week. I'm also going to be talking about everyone's most hate-to-love topic, and that is the narcissist, because I think that it's a topic that I can probably give a lot of insight on. We're going to be going over some 8 different things to watch out for when dealing with or getting involved with a narcissist. And also, what's with these GD headlines? We're going to be talking about the cat that went viral taking over the internet that all of us had to do a double Google on when we saw it just to be sure. So we're going to be talking about all of that, including a new small business that is just perfect for all you fuzzy fellas out there on this week's all new episode. So grab yourself a hot cup of brew, preferably a sleeping dog cup of coffee, because that's what I'll be sipping on, or, you know, something stronger to get through sitting with me for so long. So let's get right into it. All right, so I like to make a post on my Facebook page that asks you guys what topic I should talk about on the episode, and it's always exciting to see what topics you guys pull up. And I answered a whole bunch of them last week, and there was a new one on there this week that I wanted to touch base on, because it's actually a topic that I've been talking about with a lot of my small business friends, my content creator friends, and people who do the same type of work as I do online. And it comes from Brian G. Drakenberg. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Brian, if I'm not, I apologize. Everybody knows I'm an asshole when it comes to pronouncing things. And he asked, what happens if the US government does ban TikTok? Now, I know this is a really trending question, and there's a lot of content right now going around online talking about this. And I have a few different thoughts on it. You know, I know that like all over the news, you're seeing government actual buildings and like bases and things banning the use of the app while on government property that can connect to a lot of different like Wi-Fi's and things that they just don't want people getting into, which makes sense to me. It's just kind of odd, like, to me, that you would even need to be using TikTok while you were at work if that was the type of job you have. It's such a serious job. It's kind of like making TikToks in patients' rooms if you're like a medical official. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just like, for me personally, it's like there's a time and a place for things, and I just have always thought that there's like weird places that people choose to focus on TikTok. But what's going to happen? Here's the thing. I've been hearing a lot of stuff. One of the things that is really interesting to me is I've been experiencing some things with meta platforms, right? And I do think that this harbors some facts. So there, if you look up throughout a lot of different platforms, there's a lot of people talking about how meta platforms are specifically targeting TikTok, and they're putting out a lot of information to kind of slander and degrade TikTok as being an unsafe platform when it comes to data breaches and things like that, which I find highly humorous and ironic, because Meta has been in the Supreme Court being investigated and interviewed on that exact thing, literally busted for selling our data. So I think that if anybody's really concerned with TikTok being an unsafe platform in regards to collecting and selling your personal data, I would recommend you stop using social media altogether, including Google, because all of these platforms do that, every single one of them, to different degrees and different standards, sure, and the fine print might be worded differently, but ultimately all of these platforms are collecting our data. That's what algorithms are. They collect everything that we're doing on our phones, on our computers. When we are logged into their servers, that is what they are doing. They are monitoring us. So if you have fear of TikTok being somehow worse, and I know a lot of it is around the stipulation that it's a China-owned brand, you know, Zuckerberg is literally bought and paid for by every larger entity there is out there. So if you really are worried, I would highly recommend immediately scrubbing your Facebook and your Instagram, because they are both meta platforms. And there is documentation out there that supports that meta platforms are purposely going out of their way to create narratives to slander TikTok as a danger to use, and trying to get people to be more fearful of it. And I personally think one of the reasons as to why that's the case is that Meta is a very controlled platform. They are heavy on censoring literally anything and everything they feel like they want to own the narrative of. And to such degrees, they abuse their users on a daily basis, even those who follow the rules. I read a report once put out by Meta that claimed that when they do their policy changes, they purposefully have a lot of gray areas and make it complicated to understand and follow the rules, because they do not want people to be able to adjust their behavior to follow said rules. That way they can hold them accountable. And in my mind, that's an absolute just mind warp, right? You're literally saying that you want to change rules that you want your followers to abide by, but you also are making sure that it's difficult to abide by these rules and follow the rules, because you want to be able to reprimand people and dictate what these people are allowed to do and say. And that's insane to me. That's literally an experiment. That's like a public experiment. So I think that Meta's real problem with TikTok is that when I look at TikTok and I look at what people complain about being flagged for on TikTok, because I do think TikTok has really unfair algorithms towards smaller creators. I feel like it's really hard to get visibility on TikTok for any creator that's not like a real big time, highly monetizable account, which I think is unfair. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to get views that are not just your average like Addison Rae type account, which I think is unfair. But there's tons of accounts out there, obviously, that do get tons and tons and tons of views. And I think the thing is that Meta doesn't like that TikTok really is one of the most used sources to not only put out unfiltered information from a personal experience standpoint and an unfiltered standpoint, but where people go to research things. So TikTok, although it flags a lot of content incorrectly for like sexual solicitation, one of the first videos I made on TikTok was me going through my closet, and I had put on one of my bras over my shirt. And the video was of me in my bathroom mirror, like doing a weird wiggle. But I'm fully clothed. I have on a full t-shirt, jeans, and I put on this shiny pink bra over my shirt. And I got flagged, and my video was deleted for sexual solicitation, which is absurd to me. Especially because you literally have videos on there where you can see women's whole vagines just out in the open, and their entire platforms are based on these videos, and they get millions of views. They're monetized videos of actual sexual content. But when you do stuff like that, you get flagged, you get banned, your views get taken away. If you have a creator account, a lot of times that from a smaller platform, that gets taken away. So I do think that there's some issues in that area, but I do also think that the reason why there's a lot of content being put out to try and get rid of TikTok and to try and tell people they need to stop using it and it's a danger to your privacy. I think a lot of it is because it's a more free platform to put out information, and overall that's not looked highly upon when it comes to influencing society. The majority of our time is spent on social platforms, and one of the most used social platforms in today's society is TikTok. And Facebook doesn't like that because now they're like the ugly stepsister, right? They're the ones that aren't getting the overall attention like they used to. And he tried to rebrand with Meta, and we all saw what happened to Instagram as a platform when he bought that. It's like anything Meta or Zuckerberg touches just turns to shit. And it's a really difficult platform to use, and you need to sit down, shut up, and just scroll whatever crap they decide to flood your newsfeed with, which is usually scam brands from China pushing products that were stolen from actual small businesses and fraudulently being remade and sold through paid ads, while the actual small businesses are being told they're not allowed to run ads and they're getting ghosted from their own followers. So I think ultimately, I don't think the US is going to ban TikTok. I think it's another one of those things where they're trying to create an uproar. But I do think that the problem that's being made is that people are intimidated by TikTok, like the big higher ups that want to really dictate the information that we're all getting overall. I think that they want to make sure that we don't have platforms where we can share and learn from, that they don't have such a heavy control over, like Meta platforms. And that's just my personal opinion. Y'all need to do your own research on these things because they're so involved. There's so much to them. I'm going to put a link below in the description of a video of a woman from TikTok talking about this exact same thing. You can believe her, you cannot believe her. But I strongly think that overall, if you are in fear of TikTok invading your privacy and selling your data, then you most certainly need to get off Facebook and Instagram because they've already been busted for doing that exact same thing and y'all are uploading there daily. So the next topic that we're going to get into is our official topic for the show, and that is narcissism, dealing with narcissists. I think that it's something that we all really connect through, just like anxiety and depression, right? I think that there's a huge demographic of people who are trying to survive in today's world that are consistently dealing with and battling narcissistic behaviors, relationships, people who are maybe overpower in like job forms or relationship forms. I know dealing with narcissistic personalities is something that I'm very familiar with, as I grew up in a family that had one, and I also my first marriage was to one. So I think that I'm strictly coming from a personal experience standpoint when it comes to narcissism. But also I would like to state that I feel like there's a lot of mistitled narcissist and narcissistic situations, because I think that we are becoming a society that just wants to be able to put a title on things versus actually get to the bottom of a situation and understand the situation and deal with it. I feel like things are just titled, and I think that there's a lot of times people are unfairly dubbed narcissists by truly narcissistic people, and I think that the term narcissism is kind of dubbed and handed out to a lot of people who don't deserve it based off of other people trying to take control of situations that aren't narcissists. But because so many people don't know how to function through high emotional situations or through self-control or even taking claim to their own issues in hand in situations, we tend to dole out titles to other people that are very unfairly given based off of a heightened emotional state because we're hurt, we're damaged, we're dealing with things. So I also think that in today's society, narcissism and being a narcissist is just tossed out like people who all of a sudden will have anxiety or depression through a small point of their life because they're going through something specific, but they don't really know what that is and they don't have any help navigating it. And then by the time they get through that problem, it's gone because that wasn't really the problem to begin with. But we're in such a society of oversaturated titles and putting claims on things and titles on things so we can feel like we're more in control of them because so many people are trying to function out of control. I do think that a lot of times we're maybe not necessarily dealing with narcissists, but we're dealing with sociopaths or psychopaths, which we're not, because one, I can't remember, I'll have to look it up. A sociopath and a psychopath are two different things. One person is born and one person can be created to be so. So I need to look those up again because I always forget which one is which, but they are different. So I think that narcissists are kind of like that. One of my friends asked me, do you think that narcissists can transition out of being a narcissist? And I said, well, I think that it's a funny thing because I think that there are born narcissists who there's something in their brain that is just different chemically that makes them behave in these manners and treat people that way. And then I also think that there's created narcissists that are put into environments where they grow into such behaviors based off of the environments that they're growing into. And I think that somebody who's born a narcissist it's kind of like being born with any type of medical or mental issue, where you have to either learn to do better and try to function outside of that. And then you have people who just, that is who they are the rest of their lives, and there is no other option. But people who become narcissists, I think, are put there for certain reasons, and through lots of self-reflection and working on themselves, I think that everybody has the ability to change if they're really willing to put on the work internally. And to be a narcissist, you really have to be able to claim your fault to even be able to maybe work it out, right? So that's what we're going to be talking about. I have a couple of things here, so when I'm looking down, I'm not looking at my crotch. Not looking at my crotch, I'm looking at my computer. So get your mind out of the gutter. So I'm going to start with a couple of things that I've sent myself that kind of just triggered this idea. And one of them you guys will probably be able to relate to if you've ever dealt with a narcissist, is no one throws a bigger tantrum than a narcissist getting shown facts and evidence of something they definitely did do. And that is something that I have dealt with a lot with the narcissists that I have grown up around. And I use growing up around kind of as a loose term because I didn't grow up with a narcissist in my family until I was really getting to the stages of being able to start making decisions on my own. The older I got, the more this narcissist started to realize the opportunities of losing control, and control is a huge thing with narcissists. And the more they realized that the opportunity of losing control over me was possible, the more that they start to develop these worst traits, like they start acting out. So when I was young, it wasn't, I conformed. I did everything I was told. I never kicked against the pricks. But as I got older and I started becoming more of a free thinker, I started challenging this narcissist, which made them start lashing out at me more and more and more. And as I got older and was able to call out this narcissist for the behaviors that they were doing factually and showing them that they were in fact doing these things, the more they start to aggressively attack you, because they do not want to have a mirror put up in their face. And if you put a mirror up into their face, they're going to tell you why they're going to have the right to break it over your head. So if you've ever dealt with a narcissist, one of the worst things is the temper tantrums that you have to deal with because you hold them accountable for the behaviors that they do. Now, this coincides with the next thing I'm going to read you, and that is, when a toxic person can no longer control you, they will try to control how others see you. The misinformation will feel unfair, but stay above it, trusting that other people will eventually see the truth, just like you did. And I think that's probably one of the most important points about a narcissist, is that when they can no longer control you, they will control other people's narratives of you. So they will consistently try to get to anybody and everybody they can that's close to you to manipulate their view of you so they can have another person on their team of abuse, is basically what it is. It's a tactic to keep control, because if they can isolate you from everybody else that you care about and that you know, then maybe they're not wrong, right? If everybody else believes what they're saying about you, then maybe you are the one that's wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? So one of the most important things is to stand your ground in this area and to not care about the narrative that is untrue. It's so important that if it is untrue, do not humor it. Do not humor it. It's not a truth. There is absolutely no reason for you to acknowledge something that does not exist, that is not real about you. And I've I've counteracted this type of abuse through like the pinup scene in my pinup career. A lot of times women towards other women will start to create a narrative towards women that they feel intimidated by or that they don't like. So they try to start speaking untruths about these women and spreading it throughout the industry so they then can control how other people feel about her, and then they can control her advancement, right? So one of the things I've always done is I just don't humor it. Because the moment you're like online and you're getting on Facebook and you're making 50 million posts to let people know this isn't true, you're giving that lie a sense of truth. Because if you feel you have to defend something that isn't true, why are you trying to change people's mind about it? And so by humoring it at all, it really does just completely deplete energy that you need to continue to put into yourself, to strengthen yourself, to get you out of this situation and keep traveling down the road. So definitely do not humor the untrue narratives that narcissists put out against you to try and hurt your advancement, because ultimately they're just trying to keep control. Next one that I'm going to read you guys is really hits home for me, because with the narcissists that I've dealt with, I can definitely say that the relationship that I had with a narcissist was damaging, and it was an extremely difficult situation to be in through almost a decade of my life. But I can honestly say that healing from that, I feel, was a more normal process, because I think that, you know, we get in relationships with people and sometimes those relationships are really, really bad and they're really abusive in a lot of different ways and elements. But I think that when somebody in our own family abuses us in these ways, it hits on a different level. And I think that it hits on a different level because family is family, right? It's blood. And when it comes from somebody who is in such a place of they're supposed to love you and take care of you and do everything to fight for you, it really hits on a different level when they abuse you in these ways. So I feel like healing from being in a relationship with a narcissist was an easier and more normal path to travel in a healing standpoint, and the one with dealing with a narcissistic family member, I'm still trying to navigate. I haven't gotten to the end of that path. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that, because it's just hard when a family member that's in such a place of supposed to be nurture and care of you and your well-being turns on you so horrifically. So this one right here says, narcissists drive you to insanity with their criticism, rudeness, accusations, cruelness, condemning, sense of superiority, riding their moral high horse, projection, hypocrisy, deaf ears, control, lies, threats, and double standards. Then when you react, they say you are the drama and you are the one in need of help. They are the most immature blame shifters you will ever know, and full of nothing but excuses and justifications for their pathetic behaviors. And this really is true. When it comes to real deep-seated narcissists, the lengths of abuse that they will go is unending. And they really do take the lowest ground traveled. And there really seems to be no ends to the cruelness that they will project onto you, the choices that they will make to try and stop your progression and keep control. Once they feel like you've cast them out and you've broke free of them, it's like this personal vendetta that they carry with them forever to make sure you pay for that. And it really takes a strong person to break that control, because even once removed from that narcissist, they will continue to interject in areas that they can to try and hurt you, even in the smallest facets. And it can be years have passed and they'll try to find, like, just out of nowhere, do something to make sure that you didn't forget that at one point they owned you, and will you let them own you again? So a lot of these things will be such deep-seated abusive behavior that's brought on by their sense of this need to control you and let you know that they're right and that what they're doing is justified, and how dare you try to let them know that you don't want any part of that anymore and that you don't appreciate what they've done for you. And so it can get so aggressively ugly. It can really hurt your mental state. So that's when it's the most important to keep those boundaries up, because there are some narcissists that you will never be able to have a relationship with again, not even on a civil standpoint. And those are the ones that will tend to try and come at you in the most perverse ways to hurt you in the most grotesque ways. I've had my children messed with. I've had my livelihood messed with. I've had my safety and my children's safety jeopardized. I've had my husband put into situations that are just absolutely grotesquely unfair. You know, they'll go to absolutely the greatest lengths in the world to try and harm your happiness if they see you starting to gain any traction down that road. So boundaries and space and absolute cut off connection to these people is really dire to your advancement in your healing and your self-growth. And at some point you might feel strong enough to be able to face these people again and protect yourself from any more narcissistic advances that they make towards you. But for a lot of us, you know, we heal from what we went through, but once it's put in our face again, sometimes that can really make us regress in the improvements that we've made. So I would highly stress that if you're dealing with a narcissist that goes out of their way to try to bring physical harm to your life and your mental state, that those are the ones that you truly need to get as far away from and act like they fell off a cliff into the deepest, darkest holes. Because the moment you give them any attention whatsoever, even by speaking their name to another person and it might get back to them, that is all they need to try and root themselves back into your life. All right, so I'm trying to stay in control of my length here with, that sounded bad, with my show. I know that I make really long shows and I apologize, but I think this is a really great 8 things to really look out for. And I'm going to close out this part of the show with these. I'm going to put this up here so you guys can look at it too. It's probably going to be hard to see though because of the writing, but it says know the 8 before it's too late. And these are 8 signs of a narcissist that you need to be watching out for. And if you are dealing with these types of things, you really need to reevaluate the relationships in your life that could be bringing these to the table, because healthy relationships do not have these things in them. I'm here to tell you 100%. I have been in the worst relationships, both intimately and with family members. And it does not have to be that way. And you have every right in the world to stand up to both and rid your life of both without feeling bad for doing so, because nobody deserves to be treated the ways that narcissists will treat people. So the first one is intensity. In lying, over the top gestures, insisting early marriage, which was something that was consistently put on me at the beginning of my relationship. Sorry, I just kicked my at the beginning of my relationship, until I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, and that is, and bombarding with texts and emails. That's also something that I have lived through, and it's just a way to dominate you as a whole. If they can tie you down and claim that ownership that a marriage can provide some people, and also just completely dominating your time through consistent interactions with them nonstop. You don't have time for anybody or anything else. Number 2 is jealousy. Irrational behavior, refusal to let you speak to opposite sexes, demanding to know private details of your life. Also something I dealt with in my intimate relationship with a narcissist. It was constant. If I talked to anybody that was the opposite sex of me, and also even the same sex as me, I wasn't allowed to interact with men, because if I did, it meant that I was trying to cheat or I was trying to get involved with them in a way that I shouldn't have been as a married woman. But also any female friend I had, they would try to dominate that friendship to the point where they would then start bombarding those female friends of mine to where those female friends wouldn't want to be my friend anymore because they were uncomfortable with what that person was doing and their constant interaction with them to try and develop a more serious relationship with those people than I had, so they could then keep control of my relationships with other people through those people. And that was really difficult to have friends tell me, I can't be your friend because this person makes me so uncomfortable, and they don't seem to have boundaries or limitations with how they're willing to behave towards your friends. And so that was always really difficult to deal with. 3 is control. Telling you how to dress and behave, showing up uninvited, checking your phone without permission. Now, control is something that was extremely dominating in both situations, both with my family member and with my intimate partner. Control is probably the most driving force of a narcissist because that's ultimately what they get off on. Control is a huge part of how they survive, and if they do not have control, then they don't have any standing with you. So they will try to control literally every aspect of your life. You know, I went through not even being allowed to leave the house for years of my life. You know, knowing where you are at all times and making sure they keep that control over you is a really huge part of it. Getting to dictate where you go, the things that you're into, what you like, your friends, your job. You know, it's a huge part of the role that they claim in your life. So control will always be probably the number one red flag for me. And it's really crazy because my husband now, when we were in a long distance relationship and I lived in Oklahoma and he lived in Texas for 2 years, I would go out with male friends all the time after work. If I didn't have my kids and I was alone and I was depressed and I didn't want to be at home and I was sad, I'd go out with friends. And it was such a surreal feeling to be like, hey, I'm going to go out with so-and-so. I'll text you when I get home, and not be texted the entire time being berated that I was, I'll put it up here because I don't think you're allowed to say it out loud on here. And just being berated and cast down on and talked down to because you might have a friendship with somebody of the opposite sex. So it's really surreal once you get yourself into a healthy relationship, and it really does show you all of the ways even more that you allowed yourself to be abused, at least for me. And control is always going to be like the number one red flag for me. And when we were in a long distance relationship, there was another gentleman who I was hanging out with as a friend, made very clear that I wanted to be friends. And it was a joke between us that our other people couldn't understand how him and I could be friends. And we would joke about it, and it's like, geez, do people really not think people with, you know, the opposite things can't hang out together and it not be sexual? And he came into my work once when I wasn't there, and he talked to a coworker of mine about how my husband now, who was my boyfriend at the time, how he doesn't understand how he's okay with me going out and hanging out with him one-on-one, and how he would never be okay with that. And she said, well, that's why she would never date you, because she was already with somebody like that. And she doesn't want to be controlled like that. And she doesn't want to have a constant guilt trip put on her that if she's hanging out with a friend of the opposite sex, it must be because she can't control herself and she's sleeping with that person. Like, she would never date you because of that reason. And when I heard that, I was like, geez Louise, like, that's crazy. Like, I could never, I know for a fact I would never get myself back into a relationship like that, because that's not good for anybody. So control is 100% one of those things. And hold on, my computer's turning off. And it's definitely one of the things you need to look out for. Red flag number 1. Number 4 is isolation, insisting you spend time with only them, making you emotionally, physically, and financially dependent on them. This was a huge thing for both, in both situations for me. Family first above all, which to an extent is very true, but also my significant other was very highly demanding on they're never being anybody else, and they will at times even put wedges between you and your own family, you and your friends. If you are with somebody that's putting wedges between the people who love and support you in positive ways, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. So isolation was always a big one. Also for me, I spent a lot of time at home alone, where they knew I was, where they knew I didn't have a car so I could never leave. And also, I had a child with this person, so they knew that I also had a toddler who was, at times before they could even walk. So they knew there wasn't anywhere for me to go with a child as well. So making sure they know where you are, isolating you, keeping them to themselves means they don't have to counteract anything anybody else might be putting in your head about them, being crazy, basically. Number 5 is criticism, calling you names, ridiculing your life, and trying to brainwash you, claiming they're the only one that cares. Now, I remember this was a huge thing in both situations. The person in my family definitely always tries to put the stipulation of, I am the number one person that you can trust. So if you're not trusting what I'm saying, then you're clearly with somebody or involved in something that is dangerous for you, because I know all, I see all, I be all, and I am the one who has the ultimate say in what you do. But also in my relationship, it was build, break, build, for a while. Just within my pinup work, it was, this is amazing, you should do it, go after it, you're great at it. But then as soon as I got any traction, it was also used against me to claim that I was this thing again that I'm not allowed to say out loud on YouTube. And they do that a lot, is they try to control how you feel about yourself through how they see you and make you think you are seen by other people. So criticism is a huge thing. Number 6 is sabotage, making you miss work or school, hiding your keys or your money, destroying your self-esteem. So I had this happen once. In my family, I was told when I got a really good job offer, I was made to feel guilty for wanting to take that job offer. And I said, I can't provide better for me and my kids as a single mom if I don't pursue better things for me and my kids. But I was told, well, you can't take this because it'll take too much time away from them. And I said, well, I can't be with them nonstop and also have a job that takes care of them. I have to have balance, and I have to be able to do both. And I was told that I needed to figure out another way. And I was thinking, but this job is not going to wait until I figure out another way. Like, I have to be able to take this job. It's a good opportunity. But also, with my significant other, I was sabotaged in work. When he would see me starting to succeed, I was told I had to quit that job. And I remember calling my boss, crying on the phone, absolutely ashamed and devastated that I couldn't come into my shift, but also I would no longer be coming into work. And I remember my boss going, Emily, you can't let him do this. What are you doing? And I was just so brainwashed by this person and so devoted, because I thought that's what I was supposed to do as a good wife. And I was raised to constantly work at, and I was like, I'm sorry. And I hung up the phone. And it was really, really difficult, but I was getting too comfortable with being in the outside world and making friends and talking with people. And it made that person nervous. The next thing is blame, making you feel guilty and blaming you for their problems, making you responsible for their destructive behavior. This is a really big one that's always been in my intimate relationship. It was constantly letting you know that it was your fault, that you're the reason why, that you need to do better, that they can't do what you need them to do because you're the problem. So until you figure it out, they're just going to have to continue to treat you this way. So blame is always a really big one as well. And that really creates, that harbors the criticism. So when you have the blame on top of the criticism nonstop, I was constantly blamed for infidelity nonstop. And it was because that other person was consistently cheating nonstop. So these types of things are also ways to hide their behavior by making it seem like that's one of their biggest fears. So they're blaming you for it when really it's their behavior And it's just projection, because projection goes with narcissism like peanut butter and jelly. You know what I mean? The last thing is anger. Anger, overreacting to issues, having outbursts that can't control, threatening to hurt you or kill you, feeling afraid for your life. Now, I dealt with a lot of angry outbursts. I dealt with a lot of situations like that. I know with my family member, one of the last situations that I dealt with them, I had to go to court over, and I did everything in my power to make sure that I did not have to be in a close space with them, because I knew that they would physically attack me, because I had witnessed them physically attack somebody else when they were treating them that same way in the past when I was younger. So I definitely think like that. I've had I've never feared for my life in regards to my significant other that I dealt with, but with the family member, I still to this day, constantly in the back of my head, am waiting for the next thing for them to do to hurt me and hurt my children and hurt my family, and hurt the life that I've created away from them. And what's, I think, the worst part about this is that when you're dealing with a narcissist who will go out of their way to harm you, it feels like there's nobody there to help you, because I've tried to get protection orders based off of like actual threats of violence and kidnapping my children and things like that, and I am told that there's nothing I can do. But when people like that go and they lie about, well, they threatened me, they seem to be able to get that stuff immediately. Oh, sorry. So that can be really difficult things. If there is dangers to your safety, your well-being, and bodily harm, there is no reason to stay. It doesn't matter if they buy you flowers every single day. You can buy them yourself, just like Miley Cyrus said. So those are the 8 things. That was way longer than I thought, but those are really important things, and I think that you need to focus on those things. And if you are seeing these things in relationships that you have, my suggestion would be to get away from them. If you're looking for guidance in situations like this, and you're looking for help in situations like this, I highly recommend reaching out to people who you feel comfortable in guiding you through situations like this, whether it be a professional in a therapist or psychologists, or programs that are there to help people out of abusive relationships and situations, or somebody like me. I 100% share the knowledge that I've gained through getting through situations like this. So if you need somebody to talk to, and you need somebody to listen to you and maybe try to help you figure things out, make sure to reach out to me, because I 100% am always here to support you through the harder, darker times in your life. Alright, so now that we've talked about something super serious for way too long, even though I was trying not to talk too much. Yeah, right, Emily, you don't know how to shut up. That was Patricia. She's borderline narcissistic sometimes, I think, honestly. So we're gonna get to a funner part of Monday Coffee with the Doll, and that is, what is with these GD headlines? So one thing that took over my feed this week was a very interesting feline, a very interesting animal of sorts. And I was seeing it all over my timeline, and it definitely made me click on some articles and try to figure it out myself. And that is the Amazon snake cat that went viral this week. It's a very interesting looking cat, and at first glances, it looks like it could be real. It really does. It's an amazing photograph. It's an amazing edit, and whoever put this together did a good job, but unfortunately, spoiler, it's not real, in case you haven't figured that out yet. But this is from the New York Post. It is weird but true. The Amazon snake cat photo goes viral and mystifies the internet. Now, my first thoughts when I first saw this was, this isn't real. There's no way this is real. But is it real? So I immediately Googled it, and when you Google it, nothing comes up about this cat. I'm going to read you what this article says, because it was all over TikTok. It was all over my news feed. This unbelievable photo of an Amazon snake cat is just that, unbelievable. A photo of the so-called Serpens catus, a feline with black and neon yellow stripes resembling a snake, went viral Tuesday in social media posts claiming it was the rarest species of feline on Earth. Now, the thing that's really triggering about this is that I read the original article of the person who put it out, And they very much tried to make this sound like there is no like footnote of just kidding, this is you know, an edited photo, this is AI, this is none of that, right? None of that. It was a complete troll, and they stuck to it like glue, like Gorilla Glue in your hair if you try to use it as gel. Serpens catus is the rarest species of feline on Earth. These animals live in hard-to-reach regions in the Amazon rainforest, and therefore they are relatively poorly studied. A Twitter user claimed this in the original post. The first images capturing the snake cat appeared only in 2020. It weighs up to 56 pounds. Now, this is coming from the person who tried to put this out and fool everybody. Now, the deleted Serpens catus Redis post caught the eye of several commenters who flagged the feline as not being for real. Who wrote this? Who wrote this post? Who wrote this post? Jack Hobbs. I see you, Jack Hobbs. That was a hilarious pun. Well appreciated, my friend. Another user said, obvious fake. No known gene can produce natural hair or fur of those navy and bright yellow colors, one commenter said. I didn't know that. Really though, attempted a fake Latin name. A second person chimed in. One Google about species naming would have made this a lot less obvious. The post has reached out to zoology experts to verify the authenticity of the photo. However, the color and patterns in the photo bear a strong resemblance to the reptilian Boiga dendrophilia, which is a commonly referred to as the golden ringed cat snake. So the original person put this up and was like, this is what it looks like. This is a real cat. But obviously everybody was immediately calling BS. According to the Smithsonian's National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute, the snake is found that this resembles, that they modeled this fake cat after, is found in the same countries where the Amazon snake cat was rumored to be found. So this is 100% just a bullshit post. And what's crazy to me is that it's usually the things that are such obvious bullshit that go viral, right? There's so much important things out there. Like, right now, let me see if I can find it, because right now there is over, it's like 400 million gallons of biohazardous waste being dumped in Minnesota. In Minnesota, a power plant leaks 400,000 gallons of radioactive water, and this happened back in November, and we are just now being told about it. The viral catechus snakis, or whatever it's called, everywhere. Everybody knows about it. Now, to be fair, they were really making sure nobody knew about this. They were keeping it under wraps, so if people don't know about it, they can't put the news stories out. But all we have to do is kind of reflect back at the Ohio train derailment incident, and there was, for the longest time, nobody knew what was happening. People were talking about all the trendy social pop media, but nobody knew about all of the people in Ohio who were in this radioactive fallout of poisonous chemicals that were being burned over their community and killing their animals and harming their children and themselves. And now they all have horrific medical issues, and they're being paid off a couple $100 to basically be like, oh, we're sorry, we totally screwed you up for the rest of eternity, and probably your bloodlines, because this stuff is probably going to mess up and carry you through. So I think that it's always really crazy when stuff like this goes so viral that's obviously fake. I did Google it because for me, I have to know for sure because I do my own research. So I was like, this looks like total bullshit. I'm looking at the comments and people are believing this. They're like, oh my gosh, that's I never knew. And it's like, yeah, okay, you never knew, but then did you Google it to make sure? Or did you just close out? So there are literally people now on this earth who think that this cat exists based off of this article and not doing further research. So I would like to leave you this segment with, please do your research. Please do your research. I don't necessarily trust Google. I don't. I think Google's just as shady as the next person, but they do have a huge collection of encyclopedia-like knowledge about a lot of situations. So please at least try to find the real knowledge. You know, I mean, I think that they probably edit and do a lot of lying themselves in a lot of areas that they want to. But when it comes to just basic information and knowledge, you pretty much can find it easily on Google. So please just do a Google search. Don't tell people that Serpentis catechuss is real, because it isn't. And especially with AI anymore. Every time I see a photo that looks kind of trippy, I'm looking at the fingers. Because we all know AI can't figure out them fingers. You know, I never could when I drew either. Everybody's hands looked all like really weird because I couldn't draw hands. So I get it, AI. It's relatable. That was a lot. That was a lot. I feel like I overshared. It smells like oversharing. Does it smell like oversharing, or does that smell like an amazing steaming plug for Sleeping Dog coffee beans? I think yep. Are you just doggone tired of getting up in the morning to a boring, steaming pot of plain bean juice? Are you howling to get a mug full of something that gets you ready, gets you out of bed and just on the way to whatever dream you're chasing? Well, have no fear. Have no fear, because Sleeping Dog coffee beans are here. Sleeping Dog coffee beans. The beans that get you up howling in the morning after you've been howling all night. That's right. And you can get a discount off your first bean juice order with a coupon below for DollFAM members exclusively through Monday Coffee with the Doll. So make sure you get your beans. And I'm going to have some super special, perfectly concocted by yours truly beans soon and available for you. So make sure you keep those puppy dog eyes open, okay? Yeah, there you go. Get over there. Go buy some. Get some. Tell her you said, hey, from Monday Coffee. Yeah, maybe I'll send you something if you do. Okay? All right. Toodles. All right, so before I go and close out this week's episode, I'm going to share with you guys an amazing small business that is going to be our featured small business this week on Monday Coffee with the Doll presents a hot pot of small business support, a small business spotlight. This week, we're going to be spotlighting an amazing small business called Modern Viking Beard Company. Now, this is going to be a company and brand and small business for you fellas to really look into. They're an amazing beard product company. They make all of the things that you need to keep your fuzzy face looking fuzztastic. That's right. Just by one look at their Facebook page, you can see that they have extremely happy customers with the products that they are putting out. They have an amazing 5-star all across the board review. They recently had a pop-up at the Daryl Starbird Car Show and sold out. They got cleaned out of their products, y'all. Like, they did not mess around. Everybody wants to get their hands on Modern Viking Beard Company's products, and I am going to be showing y'all some really amazing products that they sent me in this great care package on this week's episode. So if you have a fuzzy face, if you know somebody who has a fuzzy face, I highly recommend tuning in, because that is going to be up tomorrow. Or if you are watching this after the video is posted, you will be able to find a link to it after this episode is over, and you can head over and watch it right now. But if you guys want to go see ahead of the time and see what I'm talking about, you can find their links below to go check them out right now. Shake a tail feather, waste no time, see what they're putting out, see what they're doing. They are run by an amazing individual who I have had the honor of chatting with and knowing for some time now, and he is just the bee's knees. So I cannot wait to share with you guys what he does and what he has to offer for all of my bearded beauties out there. So that's going to be the featured small business on this week's episode of Monday Coffee with the Doll's Hot Pot of Support, a small business spotlight. So make sure you guys do not miss that episode. All right, guys, so that's going to be it for this week's episode. Thank you so much if you are still here watching and in it for the long haul. I am trying so hard to shorten my shows, but it's really hard to shorten what I want to share with you guys. I'm quite the talker. So if you guys are watchers of the show and you come back and you watch every week. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys giving me the support and caring about my content and wanting to hear what I have to say. Feel free to reach out in the comments below. I'd love to hear from some of you. But also remember that there are lots of ways to get in touch with me. There's ways that you can be a part of the show. You can write in anonymously to the show and I can answer you in a new episode. There's all kinds of fun ways to interact with me and see what I'm doing, all linked below. So be sure to check out what I have posted, especially on my link tree. You can always go shake my tree and find something fun on there. But until then, remember that the most important things to support content creators is to do all the fun things, to subscribe to our channels, to like our content, to leave us comments, and to share what inspires you. But don't forget to ding the bells before you go, because, well, we all love it when our bells are dinged. But most importantly, remember that on the journey of learning to make peace within ourselves so we can walk in love with others better is a difficult journey. So sharing is caring and knowledge is power. And if I can share the knowledge that I collect on my path with you, we can be much more powerful together and on our own. But also remember that these are the days that fill your week. Remember to make them as amazing as you are, because they have a lot to keep up with. I'll see you next time. Bye!
Words are just words until action actually starts. And actions speak louder than words, but at the same time, words speak louder than actions because sometimes it's the right thing to do. Very cool. Okay,
That's all, folks.